What's up, Ragin Nation? How's it going? This is Alex, and you're watching the Ragin Ronin review. I got a review for you. I just got back from watching X-Men Apocalypse. It is the latest film in the X-Men franchise from 20th Century Fox. It is actually, in fact, the 9th film in this franchise, if you include Deadpool, X-Men Origins Wolverine, and also The Wolverine. This franchise has been going on for 16 years. Can you believe it? The very first X-Men film from Bryan Singer came out in 2000, and that really set the bar for superhero films. It actually was a groundbreaking film, and it really set the standard for superhero films to come. And this is actually the third film in the prequel trilogy. I call it the prequel trilogy because I'm talking about films like X-Men First Class, X-Men Days of Future Past, and now X-Men Apocalypse, where we have James McAvoy as Professor X instead of Patrick Stewart, and also Michael Fassbender as Magneto instead of Ian McKellen. I was about to say Gandalf. Anyways, so we got Bryan Singer back at the helm after directing the excellent X-Men Days of Future Past, and the big question is it better than X-Men Days of Future Past? Now that's a pretty tall order, considering X-Men Days of Future Past, in my opinion, is the best film in the X-Men franchise. I thought it was absolutely excellent, and it was so good. The storytelling, the characters, it was perfect. And so, is X-Men Apocalypse better? Well, I'm going to let you know in this review, and I'm going to also let you know that it's spoiler-free, so you don't have to worry about any of that. I'm going to do a spoiler-filled talkback discussion in my next video. So, I just watched the movie. How was it? It was good. I enjoyed it. I liked a lot of things about this film. What I liked about this film the most is the characters. Not so much the story, because essentially the story is really about good versus a very, very big evil. And that's what it is. It's nowhere near complex as X-Men Days of Future Past, and it's nowhere near as interesting as an Origins film like X-Men First Class. It's just a simple good versus evil story. And that's why I feel that the best part about this film is the characters, the character development, and all the character chemistry. We get to see some of our favorite characters back, and if you are an X-Men fan and you read the comics, you would be happy to know that they bring back a lot of characters from the comics, or rather introduce a lot of characters from the comics that we haven't seen before. And even if we've seen them before, this, with it being the prequel trilogy, we get to see the young versions of themselves. We get to see them in their own little origin story and how they came to be, and that is really, really awesome. And not only that, if you know the fate of a lot of these characters, you get to see how they came to be and how their relationships developed, and all the chemistry that they have together is just really fun to watch. So that is what I love about this film. The characters, the character development, the character interactions, and all the chemistry. Like I said, for the story, it's really not that great. Good versus evil, very, very simple. Nothing groundbreaking like and complex like Days of Future Past. But it really all comes down to Apocalypse. Apocalypse is essentially the Thanos of the X-Men universe. Well, maybe not quite, but still, he's right up there. And if we're going to have the Thanos of the X-Men universe appear in this film, you would expect to see some pretty big stuff, okay? This film, I gotta tell you that this film was a lot of buildup. It was all about buildup. The first 2 acts was all buildup for the big climactic finale, which is, of course, all the X-Men fighting Apocalypse. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but I will tell you that the third act is, unfortunately, the weakest. It is the weakest part about this film, and it really all comes down to how the villains were handled. Essentially, Apocalypse and also the Horsemen. The Horsemen are, of course, the 4 characters that, follow Apocalypse, like Storm, Psylocke, Angel, and also Magneto. And we get to see them do their thing, but they just don't get the same kind of development and screen time as the X-Men. essentially they're just minions. With the exception of Magneto, we do get to see another side of Magneto, which is pretty awesome, by the way. I thought that seeing this side of Magneto was pretty awesome. Like, it's a new dynamic, it's a new character dynamic, something that hasn't been seen before. That's something that I thought was something very, very fresh, and it had an emotional aspect to it, which was really, really awesome. But as for the rest of the characters, Storm was pretty awesome. Psylocke, she did her thing, but Angel, I gotta say that was a character I didn't really care too much for, unfortunately. They could have done a lot more with Angel, but he, at the end of the day, ended up being a minion. That's all he was, just a minion. And Psylocke, she doesn't have a whole lot of lines, but when she fights, it's still pretty badass. And Storm, seeing Storm and her, how she came to be, that is also pretty cool as well. So they handled that aspect okay, decent, but it could have been a lot better. Now it comes down to how they handle Apocalypse, and I gotta say that it was a bit of a letdown. Apocalypse should be very, very imposing, formidable, scary. Now, he was terrifying in the first 2 acts, but once we got to the final act, it really wasn't a whole lot to see, actually. My expectations for the way they handled Apocalypse was sky high, and maybe I should have set my expectations a little bit lower, but at the end of the day, it was just Oscar Isaac in a costume as a Power Ranger. As a Power Ranger villain. So, it just felt, just kind of like a letdown. And, honestly speaking, I really didn't mind the costume. It was just how they handled Apocalypse, which could have been a lot better. And to top things off, another thing that really hurt the final act of the film was it was just a CG slugfest. We see the characters do all their cool stuff, all their X-Men mutant abilities, but what was really distracting was the fact that the entire final battle was done over a CG backdrop. It was all green screen work, and it was green screen, and sometimes it really takes you away from what is going on because it is CG. It looks fake, and the lighting is not natural looking, and the backgrounds just look too CG looking, and all the things flying around is just it's just a CG slugfest, and it feels it takes away from the believability of it. And we've seen a lot better final battles in superhero films, but this one just seems to be a pretty weak attempt, unfortunately. And that's really tough. That's really unfortunate because we're talking about Bryan Singer here, who brought us a really great who introduced us the X-Men 16 years ago, and then an awesome sequel with X2, X-Men United, and then the best film of them all, X-Men Days of Future Past, which still remains the best film in the franchise. So that's really, really unfortunate, but there are still a lot of great things about this film. Make no mistake about it, this is an X-Men film directed by Bryan Singer. He brought a lot of new things to the table. He brought great character moments for this film. He brought in a lot of comic book homages and references that a lot of nerds will just go nuts about. This is a good film. It just could have been better. It really could have been better. By a lot. But I still really enjoyed it for what it is, and that is an X-Men film, and I think it's a decent installment, but Apocalypse should have been done a lot better, and that is unfortunately the only real complaint that I have about this movie. That's the only complaint. It's the villains and Apocalypse and all that CG background in the final battle, so it really is Apocalypse. Anyways, that's all I gotta say in this video. My score for this film is a 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. And this is a spoiler-free review. I will have a spoiler-filled talkback discussion in my next video. Stay tuned for that. We're going to get into specific details of all the things that I loved and all the things that could have worked a lot better. So there you have it. That's all I got to say in this video. As always, if you enjoyed this review, hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like me on Facebook, The Ragin Nation. Also follow me on Twitter, @RaginNation. My name is Alex Yu. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace. We have such great chemistry together. I love the writing in the film. It's very funny, and when these two characters are together, there's a lot of great comedy there.